We hear all these great things about how SMEs are the backbone or the driving force of certain large Western countries, Western economies, and how they make such a great impact in development and all those great things. And then we have a situation where we have a country like Zambia, over 17 million people. People are starting companies in numbers. Why don't they grow from small businesses and into large and stable companies? Why? I mean, all these statistics beg the question. Hey, beautiful people, I am Matilda, and welcome to my channel where we discuss everything entrepreneurship, business, and growth. I don't know about you, but I definitely see so many people starting businesses every year. And Pakra records the same thing. You know, even if the statistics may be a bit old, but I think they're relevant. Between the years 2016 and 2019, over 107,000 companies were registered. That's an average of 26,000 new companies every year for those 3 years. That's a lot. Now imagine a situation where all those companies, over 107,000 companies, or for argument's sake, 50% of those companies grew into large and stable companies. The type of impact, the type of developmental impact that it would have on the economy would be amazing. So this begs a question. Why don't we see our companies grow from small businesses and into large and stable companies? So I went around and I researched and looked around, and I discovered that there's so many reasons for the lack of growth. But I wanted to highlight in today's video, I wanted to highlight one area where we can look at and kind of see where we fit in. So one of the reasons why we do not see the growth we would like among our companies, that is SMEs into large and stable companies, is that there are two types of entrepreneur: a growth-oriented entrepreneur and a survival-oriented entrepreneur. Just at this point, if you have a company, depending on the types of entrepreneurs you have, this is the type of company you will have as well. So the key thing is to know, what are you doing? What is your business agenda? Just as the name suggests, a growth-oriented entrepreneur is one that is focused on growth, one that is committed to seeing their company grow and also outlive them. So these are companies we often see that have been in operation for more than 50 years, 100 years. They are mostly driven by growth-oriented entrepreneurs. On the other hand, we have survival-oriented entrepreneurs. Yes, just like the name suggests, they are more about surviving. So these are the types of entrepreneurs that I found when I looked around were the most common entrepreneurs in Zambia. Unfortunately, survival-oriented entrepreneurs are entrepreneurs that are all about making ends meet. Unfortunately, this is where most of us in Zambia are, and we really need to move into the growth-oriented entrepreneur bracket. In Zambia, we basically start a business to make ends meet. You know, for the business to look after us, to kind of generate money, which is not a bad thing. However, the difference is that as a survival entrepreneur, you do not actively make intentional moves to grow your business. You kind of are just caught up in that sweet spot, you know, just like, okay, yeah, you know, I'm able to cover my bills, I'm able to do A, B, C, D, and you stay there. But you know, for a business, that is not healthy. A business has to make profits and it has to grow. Other than that, it kind of, you know, stales out and dies. So this is how it starts out. If you're fortunate enough to have a job, you start your business as a side hustle. You know, to do all those good things, you know, to increase your sources of income, to stabilize your expenses, like to cover your expenses, to grow financially, all those good things, which is awesome. But if you're not fortunate enough to have a job, you start a small business with little funds and hopefully grow from there. Now, in the beginning, it is only right that you kind of minimize costs. I mean, as a beginning business, you want to understand the market and how it will respond to you, right? You also don't want to incur too many costs. So you may not register your company. You don't want to incur the taxes or administrative costs. You just want to understand the business. This is a great thing to do in the beginning. It kind of makes you focus only on the market and see how you're going to do things. So it allows you to have enough time to plan and understand all that you need to understand. However, For most survival-oriented entrepreneurs, they tend to stay in this phase way too long. Take note that the main trait of the beginning phase is that it's non-committal. You're not committed to anything. You haven't committed to pay tax. It's not a registered company for those that don't register. And also, you often find that the owner is the main employee of the company. So this is kind of like, as you're trying to understand the market, but then with survival-oriented entrepreneurs, they stay in that phase, which is not too good for growth-oriented people. If you want to grow your business, you don't stay there for too long. You have to start actively planning on how you're going to grow your business, how you're going to commit to certain obligations, and how you're also going to cover them. Because survival-oriented entrepreneurs stay in this phase for too long, that is why I believe that Zambia has a very huge private sector that is mostly informal. So this kind of just keeps people in one stage. They're in the informal sector and not growing into the formal sector. So even their contribution to things like taxes and other obligations is not captured. Part of the traits, if you're trying to understand whether you're a survival-oriented entrepreneur or not, is that the owner of the business is oftentimes the only employee of the business. So if the owner doesn't go to work or is unwell to report for work, that means that the business will not generate an income for that time period, which is risky. Imagine a situation where you fall ill and you're unable to take some time off because your business will not be able to generate money. So the business is entirely dependent on the owner of the business and cannot function without the owner of the business. The business and owner money transactions are not separate. This means that the owner and the business kind of have the money in one pot. So if there's a crisis at home, the owner of the business can take money from the pot and vice versa. So meaning that there is really no distinction between the owner of the business and the business. These are one. When you see the business, you see the owner. When you see the owner, you see the business. Additionally, the business is determined to minimize costs at all costs. Now, don't get me wrong. Cost control and cost minimizations are really important for any business, and we always have to get a handle on it. I mean, it affects the bottom line of your business. It affects profit. So you have to make sure that the cost area is well covered. They end up minimizing costs to the point that they sacrifice the future of the business. Things like staying in the short term for way too long, such as not registering your company, not taking on certain obligations, not employing more people to help you with the business, is a form of minimizing costs. However, at what cost? Because when you're unable to report for work, the company cannot generate money. And if it cannot generate income, it becomes a problem with keeping the company or the business afloat. For instance, let's look at a marketeer that decides to set up a roadside stand. I mean, in Zambia, this is common. Somebody will just see a roadside and then they're like, okay, I'm going to set up a roadside stand over there and I'll start selling vegetables and I'll grow from there. So we often see this. This is not so unique. So imagine a situation where you have a marketeer that sets up a roadside stand. Now, 5 years later, it is the same stand. The only difference is maybe the products are more. So what has happened is the survival-oriented entrepreneur has remained at that sweet spot for way too long. Meaning that should the person fall ill or anything happen, there is no income. There is no one to set up the stand there. There's no one to sell her vegetables, which is really risky. What this means is that all profit that has been made at the stand doing the business has been taken out to take care of personal pressures. Now, don't get me wrong, I do understand in our culture, in our Zambian dynamic, part of the reason that we may not really grow or thrive is because we have a lot of family responsibilities, family burdens, and family pressures. So what happens oftentimes is that the person who's doing business may be the only one really making a significant profit or doing well in the family. Therefore, it often falls as a burden on the person doing well to uplift the entire family, look after the entire family, and take them to a better economic status. Now, we all know that is so hard because just managing yourself, like if you manage, like me, just managing me is already a chore. What more managing like a whole 10, 20 people, it's a lot of work and a huge responsibility. Sometimes Ubuntu, if not well managed, affects us negatively. So with these few points that I've mentioned, I hope they're helpful. What type of entrepreneur are you? Are you able to comment in the comment section whether you're driven by survival, you're mainly in business to survive, or you are actually growth oriented and not practicing some of these things that hold us back from growing our businesses? Thanks for watching. I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.